and we're good to go.
Great. Thank you. So we're calling to order the Tuesday, July 6th City of Rollingwood Utility Commission meeting. We're going to start with roll call. So I'll just call out a name and you'll just say that you're present. So we'll start with who I can see, which is Clark. I can see that that was clearly present. Phil?
Present.
Ronald?
Present.
And Amy, I saw that you joined. Thank you for joining. That is significant. That signifies present as well. So with that, we're going to move on to public comments. I don't know if there were anyone signed up to provide public comments.
We did not have a sign up list. If anybody wants to speak, go ahead and raise your hand. That should be in the bottom of your screen. If you are calling in and want to speak during public comments or anytime later, *9 will raise your hand and *6 will unmute. And at this time, I don't see any hands raised.
All right. So moving on to public comments, we will begin with the presentations. And with that, I saw that Chris Hogan from Motive is on with a number, I guess, of his colleagues as well. And the first item under presentations is discussion and possible action on a presentation from Motive regarding boosting cellular service in Rollingwood. And just for the rest of the commission members present, we had kind of a preliminary call with the Motive team a few weeks ago. Again, this was just part of some of those early discussions we've had where we are doing basically in the exploratory phase of understanding, one, that we know from talking with the community that there's concern and issue around the quality of cell service around town. And we've just started having conversations, again, exploratory, to understand what our options are. And so one of those was speaking with Motive. And so we thought it'd be a good idea to invite Chris and his team to provide some additional information to the rest of the commission, just to give you some idea of what some options are and kind of what we've been doing. So with that, I'll turn it over to Chris, if that works for you, Chris.
All right, thank you guys for having us again. Just a little back history. So Steve did the presentation the last time. He's not in our office anymore, but we want to continue on to help you guys out. And we're actually, we have some new technology that would be a little bit better for you, I believe. And that's why we brought a few folks on from Gen X. And first, I just like to introduce, I mean, you guys, the only one I see right now is Dan. I know Bobby is getting on, he had a computer issue. Dan, can you introduce yourself for Motive for me?
Hello, my name is Dan Christie. I'm Director of Project Management Office for Motive. Just handle all the project managers and make sure all projects are flowing properly for great customer service.
And Bobby, it looks like you're joining. Do you have audio? Can you introduce yourself? If not, we can move on. Okay, he's probably just getting on. And then from Gen X, we'll start with Hardik, and then you guys introduce.
Thank you, Chris. Hello, everybody. My name is Hardik Jain. I'm one of the co-founder and CTO of Gen XCom. I'll be presenting our products and technology today. Thank you for giving us an opportunity.
All right.
Thompson.
Hello, everybody. This is Thompson Lewis. I am a systems engineer with Gen XCom, and I will be one of the people possibly supporting you guys in the future.
And I don't know if you have anybody else on there with your team.
I think Sherry's on the line.
Yeah, sure. You may have to unmute yourself. I think it's *6 or *9 on the phone.
Okay. She's muted. We can move on.
Yeah, no problem.
Just a little bit of brief for the folks that didn't join us last time. So Aws Communications, we were started in around 2002 here in Austin, and they grew into a pretty substantial company, communications company here in Austin and Central Texas. Motive had basically come in, and AWS is now merged with Motive as of last year. And Bobby McClung is on as well, and he was the CEO of AWS, and now he's the general manager, vice president at Motive, and he oversees our division here in Austin. Basically, what we do in-building wireless. So your public safety, which is your emergency responder radio services within high-rise buildings, schools, any large building that needs to have that. And what that enables is your emergency responders to use their two-way radios within in the building. And then also we do cell service in building. That's more of your in-building wireless. We do fiber optic installation through city limits and outside. That's being basically drilling and connecting communities with fiber optic. We do also data center and structured cabling, macro tower and small cell construction, which that's kind of what we're talking about here. And then also radio frequency engineering. And GenX is a new partner of ours, and they have private area networks. And I think that their solution would be better fit for your community for security reasons, and also get your cell service where you need it. So I brought them on board just to try to give you a presentation of what they can do. And they are a local company here in Austin as well, and we are working with them. And at this point, if I can turn it over to Hardik, we can get started.
And if I could just say a quick hello, Steve. Chris, sorry. Yeah, thanks so much, guys, for having us, and thanks for putting this together. I'm Bobby Mack, been with AWS for a long time, and now happy to be part of the larger team. We have some a good deal of experience in community networks overall, back since the late 90s. And I just wanted to say hello and thanks for having us all here. And I'll turn it over to Hardik. Go ahead.
Thank you, Bobby and Chris. I have a short presentation that I would like to present. May have to be made a host to be able to do that. Thank you for that. Just be able to accomplish that as well. So we're GenXCom. We are an Austin-based company, started in Austin, and we are commercializing a technology that me and some of my colleagues developed at the University of Texas at Austin. The company has been around for 5 years. We're about a team of 45 or so people, primarily venture funded by big name investors, as well as University of Texas and Department of Defense. We have about 20 or so contracts, both commercial as well as federal, building the technology in the cellular space. And so what we want to share with you today is what we do and how this could be something useful from a connectivity perspective at your community. So GenXCom builds and commercializes mesh network architecture. Typically, any cellular architecture requires big base stations, infrastructure that would require fiber to the base stations, significantly limiting where these base stations could be deployed because it requires fiber, very, very large towers, and lots of infrastructure that goes with it. And so operators generally have, especially in the United States, have had poor coverage. I think your area, from what we hear from Bobby and Chris's team, have had the unfortunate circumstances of falling into an area where the coverage has been poor. And operators sometimes try to solve that problem by using repeaters, but that's kind of a band-aid versus a perfect solution. And so what we have come up with is a technology as an architecture is very similar to how you have Wi-Fi mesh at your home. And so if you're using Wi-Fi mesh at your home, it's very similar, where you have some nodes that are connected using the cable to your modem, a Wi-Fi modem, or cable modem connecting to Wi-Fi router. And then you have other nodes which are wirelessly or mesh connected back to the modem. And that allows you to provide full coverage at your home. And so a similar concept we implement for cellular. We have some nodes, like what we call it as a gateway node, which are fiber connected, which can be mounted on a pole or a side of a building. And rest of the nodes are mesh nodes, which are wirelessly connected back to the gateway node. So that's something that you can deploy anywhere in the community, whether it be in a community center or on a telephone pole. And that's something that Chris and Bobby's team will help us kind of deploy. And what that would allow you to do is spawn a cellular network of your own. And so that cellular network would, your phones, existing phones will be able to connect to the cellular network, get coverage, and you can connect all sorts of devices, from an IoT device, cell phones, cars, everything, like security gate doors, etc., etc. And so it's kind of an emerging technology where cellular networks were primarily available only to operators. And over the past couple of years, FCC has passed the spectrum where people like us, people like me and you, can deploy cellular networks of their own, not just in their home or their campus, but actually citywide. And so we are taking an advantage of that. We are bringing in technology that helps deploy the cellular network easier by being able to do mesh, wireless backhaul mesh, and wireless access mesh. And so you can cover areas which are hard to reach by fiber, and do all of this cheaply, because a wireless mesh is much cheaper than actually putting in fiber infrastructure everywhere. So I'll kind of pause here for question, as well as give Thompson and Chris a chance to kind of chime in and add some points that I missed.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And so I was fortunate enough to be on some of the initial discussions that we had with Steve, Chris from Motive. And so at the time, the discussion was, hey, if you think of the progression of our conversation, it was, we don't have great service. How do we get a carrier to put a tower into the town, right? And there's obviously some height issues, there's aesthetic issues. And so that discussion kind of, let's just say that we went down a path and we didn't continue down that path. Several years have gone by, we're revisiting this because some of the technology has changed. It seems like it has changed even since our discussion in the last few weeks, meaning we were initially thinking about small cellular. And I guess my question is, how is this different from that? I think I know, but I just want to make sure that for discussion purposes, since many of us were on that call, just everyone can think about it. How does this differ from what we think of the small cellular tower kind of installation and operation? And then as a follow-up to that is, similarly, the concern many of us have is not just having cell service when the weather is nice and we're just living our normal lives, but given some of the issues we've had with power and electricity in the neighborhood, how does this survive those types of weather conditions?
Thank you, Jonathan. Those are two great questions. So typically this small cell network that you probably discussed in past are a way of extending an operator's network into your area. And that too would require fiber connectivity and putting on antenna, probably putting on very tall poles. This is what we're proposing today is a completely private network, and so this something that would show on your phone as a City of Rollingwood network, and so kind of like it's a private network of your own, where the devices that you get from like our Apple and Samsung phones will be able to connect to these networks. And so in some cases, let's say you're connected to your AT&T phone, you will also see two active connections on your phone. The AT&T connection and this private network connection. And so when you have a spotty AT&T connection, this will always be on because this is your own network. And tying into the second point about survival in a inclement weather environment, this is something that will be accessed only by the city and the community. And so typically what happens is if we have any power outages, everybody gets on through hotspots. And very soon the operator's cellular network gets overwhelmed by everybody. And not just talking about like a particular city, but given that they have limited data centers, it gets overwhelmed pretty fast, both on the network side as well as on the data center operations side nearby. With you having a private network, that would not happen because you have a dedicated system that is meant to support the number of users that you provision, and they would continue to function if it has a power connectivity and backhaul connectivity. So it will continue to function even if you have city like power outages and other people are getting onto operators' network. So that would be a significant advantage.
Thank you for that. As a follow-up question, right, existing cellular signal, we were told, right, is very much driven by line of sight as far as signal strength. I assume does a system like this have those same limitations, for lack of a better word, but the benefit is you can install more of these?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. It's very similar to kind of redeploying Wi-Fi at our home. We just one access point. We just get connectivity. If the access point is in the living room, you get very good coverage in living room and in that floor. If you go to the upper floor or the basement, you start to get bad coverage. And so what you do is just buy a Wi-Fi mesh, either from Eero or Plume or Google, and it does a mesh. And so this does a similar function. If you find a problem that this particular area has a bad coverage, you just add another mesh node to it. And so it's easily extendable. The other benefit is that mesh kind of an architecture are more resilient. So for example, if you have one of this link break, the mesh node will directly talk to the gateway node. So, or if this link breaks, this mesh node can talk to another mesh node and go to the gateway node. So you can build in resiliency from that perspective. So if there's any change in the environment, there won't be issues where you have continuous dropping connectivity.
Thank you. And then a follow up, and then I do want to open it up to some other folks. When I think of expanding the cellular network, I was still thinking about expanding the signal for the carriers, right? So that we'd have to, obviously, again, not having done this before, but you'd have to talk to a Verizon and AT&T and make sure that they're on those networks. With a private network like this, is the city responsible for data as basically the data volume? So it's just the city is paying for it as opposed to the individual users that then as they switch on and off that network depending on signal strength?
Yeah, so you can build in both of those things. Either the city pays for it. You just pay for the backhaul, which is like, for example, all of these are connected to, let's say we deployed 5 gateway nodes around your city, and we deployed 20 mesh nodes. So all the 25 devices will go through like one backhaul, one fiber-based backhaul, or 5 fiber-based backhaul, and so you just pay for that, as a bundle. And those costs are significantly less compared to an individual kind of a retail price that people pay anywhere from $60 to $70 a month per subscriber. And this is something also either an individual can pay to the city or to the network operator, or the city or community can pay everybody. The other advantage is this scales with the number of users. So you can have like 5,000 users on the same backhaul, and you can have 20 users on the same backhaul. It really doesn't matter. If you do the same thing with operators, they would start to charge you for each and every subscribers. So you can start using this network as primarily providing coverage to the community, and you will soon find that, oh, I can use this for monitoring this, or I can use this to put up cameras everywhere for security, and all of those are now connected via this network coming to a server versus connected to an internet and going out into the internet. So the use cases can will exponentially advance once you deploy this network. That's something that we have seen with our customers.
May I ask 3 questions? And from a non-tech perspective, 1, my wife has to go out in the front yard to use her cell phone. Will this stop that?
Yes. So one thing that we can enable is.
Will this solve the problem of not having to be able to use your cell phone in the house?
Yes. I want to qualify that by saying, yes, she can get. She can receive the call she gets on her AT&T SIM card by quote unquote roaming on this private network. So from a technically, she will be connected to the private network, but in the back end, if any call comes to her from AT&T, the AT&T center will connect, patch it to the private network center, and that would patch up the call. So answer will be yes.
Okay. Second, we've had 2 bad situations in the last 20 weeks where we had no power and terrible cell phone. Will this work if we're down again?
Yes. So with between us and with Motive, we will deploy this infrastructure such that this will work when we do not have power, and we have the whole system running even though the power is off.
Okay, and then third question. Well, unfortunately, I lied. I've got 2 more questions. We have not gotten rid of our landline because that 911 won't work on the cell phone. Can we get rid of our landline?
Yeah, that's being able to support E911 on this is something we're exploring right now, and I think we should have an answer on that in the next couple of weeks, where if we support E911 on this private network, you can get rid of your landline. In fact, you will be able to make HD voice calls in between the network as if you're on a landline. So even if the connection from outside world gets disconnected, the city itself inside will be connected and will have the call facility.
And then what about things like when ACL is happening in Zilker and anyone can get onto this network? Will that kind of traffic overwhelm our network?
Yes, that's a great question. I know nobody other than you and Y2 will be able to get onto the network. So it's exclusively your own private network. In fact, if there are hundreds of thousands of people in ACL, they may overwhelm the operators' towers, causing you to have poor connectivity. However, this will be a private network that will continue to perform and cater only to you and your area, and won't allow other people to join in.
And then I guess the final question is cost. And I
don't think we're there yet.
So this is Thompson. May I make a couple of clarifications for you there?
Please.
Sure. So I just want to make a couple clarifications for you. Is that when you talk about power, right? So for instance, in my particular neighborhood, right, there are towers and they receive power from the city, right? So what you have to be cognizant about is that everybody gets power from a central location. So we can put up a system. We can put up a system that has, for example, solar cells that power mesh nodes, and we can have separate power supplies and battery backups to the equipment, right? So one thing you have to be cognizant about is that we only, or you will only own a private network up to a point. So if there is a power outage such that it affects the actual backhaul from whoever you get service from, if they lose power, chances are there are a lot of other people going to lose power. So I just want to make that clarification to you so that
I completely understand. I get it.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make that
You
clarification.
can't run this thing without electrons.
Yeah, right. So however way that motive or we power this thing, whether it's solar cells on the mesh nodes, there is going to always be a single point of failure unless someone pays a lot of money to have backup. And most of the time, major carriers will have backup generators to their system. So we can design a system that'll have resiliency as far as power. The second fact that I wanted to let you understand is that when you mention and speak about, well, how do I keep other people from hopping on my network? Well, your phone today has a card in it called a SIM card. And so you may have seen this card. There's actually two different types. There's an eSIM and there's a regular physical SIM card that plugs into the side of your phone. And then so typically on a CBRS network, you'll be provided with either a capability to have a physical SIM card or an eSIM card. So that'll guarantee the fact that no one else will be able to hop on this network without the proper authorization.
No, I don't mean to be exclusive. I just was curious if we'll get overwhelmed when there's.
No, this is going to be your network. So feel free to ask any questions that you want. There is no stupid question. There is no dumb question. We're here for fact finding and to help you understand what you're going to get.
Well, the absolute major concern I have is that City Hall works and that dispatch and fire dispatch and all that stuff will work whenever there's a natural disaster, of which we've had two recently.
Sure. Typically, whenever you have a private network, it's going to backhaul somewhere, right? It's going to backhaul to either a major carrier if you're going to share that particular network, or to some other switching network. So it depends on how the system is actually set up.
Whether I talk to my mom or whatever, it's fine.
You're saying your mom is not as important?
No, police dispatch is important.
Sure.
Fire dispatch is important. That's
Sure.
what I'm concerned about.
Okay, this is Clark Wilson here. I have a couple of questions. So on the, just to review your power discussion, so you're going to have, presumably you'll have batteries as the backup, and we had power outages of like 5 days here. What is the lifetime of a typical battery installation?
I think that would be answered by Motive. I don't know what type of backup they may install. So it's dependent on the system that's put in. Chris, can you answer that one?
Yeah, Dan or Bobby, could you answer that more equivalently? I know the battery backup, the time frame, but then there's also generator power. And go ahead.
Well, this is Doug with Motive.
Oh, Doug, you're on.
So yeah, typically benefit of this type of system, the CBRS private network, is these are much lower power devices than your typical cellular tower with big radios that take up a lot of electricity to run those that whole tower. These are much lower power operating devices. So realistically, we can build that battery backup as robust as you require.
Okay, so 5 days wouldn't be out of the question.
Yeah, if there's enough space, and
Okay.
where we're going to put these things. So yeah,
Right.
there are some limitations. Yeah.
Okay, another question is what, in these cartoons that we're looking at on the screen, what do these mesh nodes and gateway nodes actually look like?
They're right there on the left-hand side.
Okay, the mesh
Brown, like
node.
what will we be looking at?
So these will be the mesh and the gateway nodes that will go outdoors, and then these are the indoor equivalents that could go in the ceiling.
So when I take my dog for a walk, I won't see anything.
Yeah.
So
Those will mount on a
Because
pole.
we're going to catch a lot of heat about that.
Well, so I guess the question is, what is the scale? It's hard to say, but just generally, what is the scale of the outdoor unit that would be attached to any of either the communication, the light towers, or the communication poles, or whatever that we have around town? Just give us an idea of the scale. I see it's white. It'd be brown. What if we wanted to paint one green so it look like a tree? I just want to understand. Again, these sound crazy, but these are questions that will be asked, so it's just helpful to know.
So
Yeah,
this is
totally.
Thompson. If I may say, these are just the actual radios themselves. Whether or not they're placed away from the top of a pole or the bottom of a pole in a separate box, it depends on the actual locations that they're posted. But there's a concept called stealthing that's used in the telecom industry. And probably if you've ever been to Disneyland or Pirates of the Caribbean, there are radios all over that location that you probably never ever see because they're hidden inside fake trees or something like that. So there's ways to stealth these products so that they're unobtrusive to the normal user. So just because you see a box like on the left-hand side, that outdoor unit, doesn't necessarily mean that'll be at the top of a pole. Right, so that could be at inside the side of a building with a cable running out to the antenna on the outside. So I'm sure Motive has a lot of ways of stealthing equipment so that they're as unobtrusive as possible.
Yeah, this is Chris. So we've done that in the past, and we talked about that on the last presentation. I mean, you can put it in steeples, you can put it in, like you said, trees. A growing tree, but you can put it in a lot of different places that will be hidden. And that's, when we come in and we do the scope and we look at things, and all of that will be presented to you before any installation is done, so you get your approval of where it would be installed. And we understand that within the community.
So this takes care of the problem where you've probably noticed driving around Austin, I've driven around there, is that no more will you see 300-foot towers going up, or even 100-foot towers. You've probably seen those around freeways where there's probably, I don't know, 10 to 12 ugly looking antennas that are sticking out there. Those are the cellular towers that the major carriers use for being able to distribute signals. So using a smaller device like this allows you the capability to do more stealthing, but yet put up more of these units to be able to provide better coverage in areas where normally you wouldn't have a deployed tower to be able to provide signal.
Okay, I have another question. There are some services for Wi-Fi that are done with the same type of equipment. Is this something that's available so somebody could, if we wanted to add wireless internet that by subscription that would replace Spectrum or AT&T? Is that
hard.
So there, I can answer from the technical product standby. There are CBRS products. There are ways to use your private network to connect them to a Wi-Fi network. So you could actually deploy Wi-Fi hotspots, and they would backhaul into a CBRS actual private network. So there are a lot of different ways to deploy networks. It just depends on the use case and what you need in a particular area. It may be one of those situations where you put a piece of customer premise equipment, like a Wi-Fi box, which has an uplink to the CBRS network. And then so you would just deploy it like a Wi-Fi hotspot, except instead of backhauling to a carrier or something like that, you would backhaul to your own private network.
so? Is that a
Cliff again? No, go ahead.
I was just wondering if that is a service you offer or plan to offer.
On the motive
This is
side,
something that will
go ahead.
this will come with the network. So for example, if you will be able to use your cell phone, like how you will be able to use your cell phone to connect to the network and convert the cell phone into a Wi-Fi hotspot. Similarly, you can use any device in the community, like those hotspot devices that you can connect to the network and use it as local Wi-Fi hotspot.
But so you're not planning to do 5G by itself is nearly as capable as our internet service we buy from Spectrum, right?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct. And this can, okay. And so your question is like, can this replace my internet connection from a Spectrum? Right. Absolutely, this can. And so you would have a receiver kind of a device that's connected or at your home that is doing the wireless link to this network, and that could be connected to your Wi-Fi router, providing Wi-Fi coverage inside the home. Absolutely, yes.
I have a couple of questions, kind of following up. While it's still fresh, with regards to the Wi-Fi, if someone is running a bunch of kids playing Xbox through this and it's chewing up a bunch of bandwidth, would that affect the quality of anyone else, or is it pretty much unlimited bandwidth that this offers?
Yes, it would. Like after a certain point in time, you can deploy more mesh nodes, and so that's one way of solving like the capacity constraint that it may have if you see the community is using a ton of data. The other thing we can do, or the community can do, is you can limit the bandwidth usage as well as the peak throughput. Like for example, nobody can get more than 100 megabits per second, right? So it's shared between everybody, and so it would not be like one person overwhelming. It will be like 10 to 15 users overwhelming the network, and at which point you probably have to deploy more mesh nodes or more gateway nodes. But yes, you will have a full control to limit the bandwidth usage as well as the total data usage over a month, similar to how operators charge us. So you will have kind of that back end that either you can manage or Motive can help manage.
And one other question, and I know we've talked about it extensively, is with regards to the power. Understanding that these use much lower power than the regular device towers and whatnot. In the event we do have a power outage exceeding the battery life that's been installed as a backup, and it's cloudy, so there's no solar, what kind of generators would we be needing to serve as backup to these gateway nodes, so that we have a seamless system in a big natural disaster scenario?
Yeah, Phil, that's a good question. So our nodes consume between 75 to 150 watts of power, and so if you take the high level 150 watts of power, that's per node. That's not
So you could have basically you could dot a few dedicated generators if that was more cost solvable than sticking a bunch of backup batteries and solar panels on them.
Yes, yes, and we have we work with the defense agencies to kind of try to do the same thing where they spawn the networks and disaster recovery system and when they go into the field. So kind of a similar concept. It would not, typical operators base stations will require huge generators. There are dedicated diesel generators that they have because their power transmissions is like kilowatts for them. However, these, since they transmit less amount of power, they'll probably cover lesser area compared to an operators. They will serve lesser users. They cannot serve hundreds of thousands of users. We are not claiming to be doing that, and so that's why they consume less power, and so more designed for community, enterprises, factories, warehouses, that kind of a scenario.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question about access to the private network? Just circling back to that, you mentioned an eSIM. Is that something that's required on the device? Like, let's say it's my grandmother and she has, a flip phone that doesn't have an eSIM. Is she able to access her AT&T service and our private network as well, or is that a limitation?
The SIM cards that we provide, so what she can probably do is she can use the SIM cards that we will provide. That SIM card will have her connect that will have it connect to the private network when she is in the area, and when she leaves the area, we have roaming agreements. So it's like kind of outbound roaming. So if she, for example, she goes to Arboretum, North Austin, she will be on an AT&T or Verizon based on our roaming contract with them, and she'll be able to roam anywhere in the US. It's very similar to kind of a concept of Google Fi, if you're familiar with Google Fi, which is like, they will give you the best service from best operator at that particular time. And so we'll kind of do a similar thing here for people who don't have eSIM.
And then just one more question. Is this something where an individual user like myself could have a node in their home? Or is it something that's only, okay. So that would just scale the network even greater.
Yeah. You can have it on your rooftop, like for example, if you want to kind of provide coverage in the community. In fact, there are lots of blockchain initiatives that are decentralizing this, just using this concept where people that have a decentralized network, and then your phone's able to get on and off of it with wherever these networks are available, because operators' networks are pretty sparse.
Thank you.
I just thought of another question. Have you had any security breaches or privacy breaches with your current existing networks to date?
Not that we know of now at the moment.
Quick question.
There's one advantage of cellular networks.
It looks like the equipment doesn't need to be high and in the eyesight of the cell phone. Is there any way we can do it in like water meters or other things that already exist? Or is it too big to fit in public spaces? It looks like it doesn't need to be up high.
Well, I think the antennas would have to go higher up. Like for example, the antennas would have to be at 6 meters or higher. And when Chris and the team come to do an evaluation and site survey, they will try to find out, what we will do a full RF design on, these are the points where you need the mesh nodes and the gateway nodes, and they will provide coverage, and this is what the coverage would look like. We can do a full simulation of that, and then we can decide how is the best way we can place these nodes at each one of the locations.
All right, so 10 feet.
6 meters.
Yeah,
is
10 feet's
20 feet.
possible. Yeah. Yeah.
The reason is because terrible cell service, because nobody wants a cell tower in the park. And if we did, they'd lose their minds. So if we're doing a bunch of these 10 feet towers, I'm afraid the residents might be upset about that. I'm fine. I mean, you could put it on my house. I don't care. You know, it's no big deal. I'll probably get better cell service because it's on my house. But, you know, there are people that would really get upset about this.
So Chris, one thing we wanted to do with this conversation again is just bring more options, right? We think about a 100-foot cell tower in the park. We know that's not an option, right? That's kind of what existing technology back that we were thinking of was. There have been some changes and some advancements, and so there's some new options. I think when we think about this, you should think about literally like what a mesh node looks like in your house from being how obtrusive that is. The thought would be to leverage existing infrastructure like light poles and potentially some of the communication poles that are in town already. If someone wants to volunteer to have one of these installed on their house, I mean, you know, that's up to them. But again, I think the idea was to say, look, we know cellular service isn't great. One option that we have here is this this type of technology. This is what it would solve. And when we talk about someone like Amy, who has no service anywhere in and around her house, the thought would be, well, we can put one of these across the street and then you have service, right? And it doesn't look like a 10-foot tower or a 20-foot tower. It looks like a white box on top of a telephone pole. And maybe it's painted a different color. But conceptually, we just wanted to bring this information to the commission so that we can have further discussion around it and make sure this is maybe something we want to think about.
John, I'm with you 100%. We have light towers and, you know, we can use those. If it's 10 feet, the light poles are 20 feet.
Yep.
And there again, this is Chris Hogan with Motive. I mean, like, we would work with you in the community and to hide whatever we need to do to get it, and we get it. And another thing with this system, we've actually just finished another proposal for a school district in the Austin area with this same system and with Gen X, and they're looking at expanding the Wi-Fi. You were talking about Wi-Fi, they're expanding it to the students within the school district. So it's bringing Wi-Fi out to everywhere for that in that school district. And it's basically the thing that you're talking about here. We could go Wi-Fi in your cellular. You can do so much more with the private network like this than you can with a small cell, and it's a lot less expensive. And so in the future, for expandability, this is really what your answer is going to be. And then also the size of it. If you go online and look at a Google Mesh system like they were talking about for your home, I actually have one in mine. I live out in the country and out in Blanco, and we have antenna Wi-Fi, and it works really well. So there's all kinds of things that we can do on the Motive side, and we have full-blown generators. We have cellular power banks that will supply full construction sites for a number of days and months with the cellular, with the solar. So we have a lot of options on the power. We have a lot of options within your work, and the expandability of this network would be tremendous. And as I believe Bill was talking about, you could put the Wi-Fi in houses and you could have it as a service to offer the community. And I think that would be an enhancement. Say, hey, they get one of these nodes near their house. Now they're going to have Wi-Fi. They can, you know, that's one more way to solve that issue. For your emergency responders within your EMS, fire department, all this would be in that area. There's possibility to have Wi-Fi in the park if we can hide these in the park, so you'll have service for other kinds of expandability.
Well, at least for me, to the committee, and y'all, you're preaching to the choir. I think Wi-Fi should be like water, sewer, electricity. It should be a public utility. We should have it, pay for it, done. So anything short of that, I'm 100% on board.
And I want to also be respectful of everyone's time here, given there's some other presentations to follow. So I do have one more question before I open it back up to see if anyone has any follow-up, but I think this is just helps to shape how or frame kind of how this would work. But so I'm on a phone call that I started in the Arboretum, and as I'm driving through and I get into the neighborhood and I drive down towards City Hall, that's where you lose the call, right? This is a seamless transition from the Verizon network that I'm on the call. It will pick up the private network as I get closer, or will that call be interrupted? I'd have to call back but switch to the private network.
Yeah, unfortunately, the call will be interrupted as you kind of switch to this network, and that's primarily because it kind of depends on how much help we get from the operators. We can make it seamless, but it will require help from the operators, and sometimes they are not open, sometimes they are. So kind of it's dependent on that. But once you get onto this network and then you make a call, that there will not be any interruptions inside inside the city in the coverage area.
Thank you. You know, obviously we have a lot to discuss, but this is now we have discussing it from a position of knowledge, right? Having some more context around our discussion. Anyone else on commission have any questions for all the folks in the line from GenXCom or from Motive? No? All right.
Thank you.
Gotcha. Hardik, Chris, the rest of the team, between both teams, thank you very much for joining us this evening and providing this information. Again, we're really just learning what there is and what our options are and how to start thinking about this. And so obviously, I'm sure we're going to put together a bunch of other questions that we'll think of in addition to, okay, here's a bunch of questions that we didn't think of, and what do next steps kind of look like, and what does the process look like, and having more of a discussion around that. But ultimately, I think that's for another meeting. But I think that's kind of the next progression of this, is just to get our heads around how we all think about it. What other questions we would have that might help steer us as we start to think of a good solution for the city.
Hey,
Okay, well,
Jonathan.
Go ahead.
Hey, so this is Thompson. One other thing I'd just like to let you know is that, you know, a lot of people are talking about security and being able to watch families and things like that. If you have park areas and you own this private network, it is possible to put up cameras in particular areas, so you can actually, it's your own private network. So you can put cameras up like overlooking the parking lot and things like that. So there's a level of security that you can also provide having your own private network. So something just to think about from a standpoint of not only being able to provide services, broadband services, but you can also increase the security around certain areas that you want.
Great, I appreciate that. Thank you.
This is Chris again. I just want to say thank you guys very much. And I know I wanted to bring GenXCom in here because I feel like it's a better solution for you guys and what you're looking for. So any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to call me. And if you want us to come out, we can come out and do a survey and look at the area and, you know, walk it with you. And one thing about the carriers, with a system like this, it is a lot easier to negotiate with the carriers to bring them in than it is with a small cell or anything like that. It's less expensive for the carriers, and it's kind of to their benefit, especially when it's a full community. So there is that possibility that we could work with them a little easier. But I appreciate the time, and any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. That was very helpful. Thank you. You all have a good evening. All right.
Bye-bye.
So moving on to the next item, which is discussion of possible action on a presentation from Crossroads regarding the electronic water meters. Thank you all of the folks from Crossroads for your patience as we're moving from one presentation to the next. So Amber, Ashley, I don't know who's here, who's going to be running that show.
Sure. I see we have Crossroads Utility Services signed in, and I believe we'll have
It's
Jeff
Andrew.
Watson.
Yep.
Andrew, hi. And I think Jeff Watson, is he on?
I'm here.
There's Jeff.
There you are. I'm looking right at you.
Yeah, if you want, I can get it started. Unfortunately, I've got to jump off here in about 5 minutes, but I'm going to turn it over to Jeff and Kevin. I believe Kevin's on, hopefully he's still on the line with Badger. So Andrew Hunt, commission members, I'm with Crossroads, your utility operator. The city staff has asked us to present on Badger meters, specifically their smart meter option. I believe that you all, through the previous operator, AWR, purchased a starter kit. And Jeff is with Atlas Utility out of Fort Worth. Is that right, Jeff? Fort Worth?
That's correct.
They are the, I'm going to say this wrong. You're the distributor. You're the licensed distributor for Badger products in the Austin area. And then Kevin is hopefully on the call. He's with National Meter, which is Badger Meter. He is the actual sales rep. But I'm going to yield it to both of those guys to run through their presentation on the smart meter options for the city.
So this is Jeff Watson. I'm with Atlas Utility. Kevin, are you on?
I am on.
Great, great. So I don't think I have the presentation deal set up with Ashley. I'm not sure if I do.
You should be able to share now if you are able to.
Let's see. Here we go. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I know that went long, so I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet, and also do like a fact-finding mission on this as well. So Cyril, if I'm not mistaken, did you guys purchase your pilots, like your 10 meters and 10 endpoints, like early last year? Is that right?
Yes, we purchased them, I think, in July. It was in the middle of COVID, and then they were installed early last year.
Okay. So are you guys still operating, are y'all paying like $3 a month for the endpoints and getting that data still, or is that discontinued?
I think it's been discontinued since we switched utility billing services. We pulled that in-house now. And we felt like the rollout of the electronic meters, everybody didn't receive enough information, or at least that was my perception.
Sure.
And so wanted to have y'all present to the commission more information about the meters and capabilities.
Sure. So I'll quickly take you through it. So let me get. So I'm with Atlas Utility Supply. I've been there about 5 years. So we were founded in 1964, and we specialize in AMR, AMI projects, water metering, and we've been a Badger meter distributor since 1981. And numerous times in the last few years, we've been distributor of the year. So we're based out of Dallas, Fort Worth. We probably work with every single county in Tarrant County, or city in Tarrant County, many in Dallas, and Austin, we're starting to grow. And of course, Crossroads, I want to say they have 12 or 13 utilities signed up with us with our Badger Beacon solution.
Right, that's correct.
Okay, so as far as Badger goes, founded in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 1905. Badger is a publicly traded company. They have 1,400 plus employees. I want to say this past year they did about $450 million. And that's not to impress you. That's just to say, hey, they're publicly traded. Whatever's going on with their money, it's there for the public to see. But all they do is flow measurement. That's all it does. As far as Beacon goes, Beacon is our term for any of the software we use for AMR, which is automated meter reading, or like mobile reading where you drive on your car to get a reading, versus AMI, which is automated metering infrastructure, which is basically at your computer, the readings come in. You don't have to drive by. It's all fixed network. And Orion are the endpoints we use for both those solutions. A quick overview, like y'all have had like a mesh network, cellular, overview the last hour or so. So we also use a cellular network is how our endpoints are utilized. If you look at this, the middle screen there where it says record all turbo, then goes Orion Cellular, then Cellular Network to the Become AMA solution. We're a hosted solution by Amazon Web Server. And we're hosted on that. And you have access whether the utility or the customer via Ion Water smart routing. You have access to that 24/7. But as far as having like collectors and repeaters out in the field for traditional system, we require none. We use the existing cellular infrastructure. So that's how we're a little bit different than everybody else. If you have any questions along the lines, stop me. I'm trying to go through this pretty quick for you guys. Like I just mentioned, a traditional fixed network would have the meter with the endpoint there. It would go to a gateway, which is kind of like you're talking about something out in the field that's put at a height and it can receive the communication. And then that's into a network. And then of course, that goes to the end user, such as the utility or Crossroads. So we're actually cutting out that whole network gateway receiver situation. So it's going from the meter and endpoint to a cellular network and right back to you, the utility, or the managed solution that it's on. System design, it's very different than, like I said, a traditional AMI where you're putting up different repeaters and collectors. We have actually a repeater collector, which is a cell phone, basically at each and every meter pit box. And that's communicated on the AT&T network. And of course, it also works on multiple networks, such as Verizon, but it's communicated through those and as opposed to all the collectors and repeaters out in the field. Everybody good so far?
Yep.
Good. Okay, so.
I have a question. This is Clark Wilson.
Yes, sir, Clark.
Yeah, so did I understand the individual cellular nodes at each meter talk to the other meters, or do they talk to the cell tower?
So great question. You just were taught they talk to each other on a mesh solution. This is different where each endpoint in the ground talks directly to the main cell tower. So they don't communicate amongst each other and bounce signals off because they don't have to. And the other reason they don't have to is we're not competing against voice and streaming. It's a data signal only. And also,
so we have the basic question is we have to have good cellular tower coverage for every meter.
And we will do a complete study of that. And just from the past, all the utilities that Crossroads has, Travis County 10, many AWR used to control, we have 100% coverage, but we will do an analysis, like your previous presenter said, and do a, make sure we'll look at the meter pits and do an evaluation of that, but also to the analysis of the cellular endpoints at each and every meter service. So we don't just look at it from a group standpoint, we look at every individual meter site and make sure each one of those has service. So moving forward, AMI advantages. This is where the future is moving. You guys just had a presentation on kind of a VPN network within your city. Actually, every signal that goes out on a Badger endpoint is on a VPN network, which is private. So no communication, nothing of that customer is going to be given over the internet. It's all going to be private and unaccessible via the internet. No infrastructure install. We have no cell towers. They're already there and installed. We're just putting a system in at the meter pit that can communicate with what's already existing out in the infrastructure. It's machine-to-machine communication, so that endpoint is going to communicate with the cell tower. The cell tower is going to communicate with the endpoint. So that's two-way communication. Sorry, my dogs are getting excited over there. And ensures minimal outages. So, you know, with all our stuff going on, whether it's power, light, whatever, the first thing to come back on the network's always a cell tower. And we're going off that same system. So we're gonna have that to make sure that we're backing up and running. And you as a city can get your meter reads in. And you know, that's a big surplus of money for you guys. So it's important to make sure you have that connection and the ability to bill anytime you want, whenever that time is in the middle of the month or in the month. This is Beacon LTE-M cellular solution. So that's what I'm just talking about. It's our fixed network, no towers, no gateways, two-way communication. Our new endpoints communicate every 15 minutes. They send a reading in up to 4 times a day that's communicated within the network. So it's time stamped every 15 minutes and it communicates 4 different times a day to the system. So you have those up-to-date readings to monitor what's going on. So if you were to have a leak or some high usage alert or someone cut the cord in your meter box, that will automatically give that information to you. So you can go out, like Crossroads can go fix the problem, or use a homeowner and go, oh, I've been running my system longer than I'm supposed to, or I've been running the water in my pool more than I should. So it will help you also as the consumer, which is built into the price, manage your own water use as well as the utility can do it for you. So it's kind of a twofold deal there. This is the same thing I just showed you earlier. So our installation is like hitting the easy button. So like I said before, you know, regular communication, you'd go out, install towers and collectors. So since we would be changing out the meter at the meter site and putting the endpoint there, the only thing you have to install is that right there in the ground. There are no outside infrastructure that's supposed to be installed. We don't require vertical towers, collectors, repeaters. Whatever's existing there, as long as our propagation study is clean and we're good to go, there's nothing to install. I will say, and I have a kind of a cost breakdown after this, you do have to consider the cost of changing out the meter, the water meter box. So we're required to install our endpoint through the top of a plastic lid. So if you have plastic lids in the ground already, you can drill holes in those. They screw in. We have a installation contraption that'll go over the top, and it's kind of like a mushroom. So it's smooth if anyone has to go over it like a lawnmower. But other than that, that's all you need for installation of our system.
I have one and I run it over with my lawnmower all the time, no problem.
I'm not saying it won't break, but it does well with that. And if you get like a 42-inch mower like I have and you sit on it for a minute or two and it's not a traffic lighted lid, most likely the lid itself will be the culprit, not the endpoint.
It's
but most
like,
likely you're going to have damage.
It's about 2.5 inches protruding from the lid.
Right. And then we have a insulation deal that goes over the top and smooths it over. And I'll actually supply you guys some samples of endpoints and meters. I'll come to Austin within the next week. I live in Dallas, Fort Worth, but I'll come and deliver those myself and leave those for you so you can see them. And move on to the next thing. So this isn't actually rolling wood. I just got off a 2-week vacation yesterday. So I threw this presentation today. So it's a different area, but what we'll do is we'll look at the cellular communication in your territory of Rollingwood, Texas. We'll look at every address list in your vicinity, and we'll come up with the cellular infrastructure that covers that. And if we don't, we know we have to install other equipment, which we have not had to do that yet. We have it in, we have it all over Austin. We have it in the Hutto area, Travis County, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So we know that area is well covered by AT&T and Verizon. So that's not an area of concern for us whatsoever. More cellular point information, transmits 4 times a day. It's 256-bit AES encryption, which means it's more private than what your online banking would be. So no payment information, no social security numbers, but also the information that's there is safe and secure. Fast and easy installation. There's no programming. Once that endpoint's installed to the meter, it automatically captures that water of a pipe. You actually have some tools you can purchase. Crossroads already has them in possession that will make sure the endpoints are already communicating with the cell towers. So when they're hooked up to the meters, they're working A-okay. Now, I know we're talking more endpoints right now. You want some meter information. We're going to get there in a second. On both the meter, which you haven't seen up here on the screen, the endpoint, there's a 20-year battery warranty. There's also a 20-year performance warranty. So those are guaranteed for 20 years. Much different than your mesh network you just saw. We don't have unlimited power at each endpoint or meter. So we do use lithium batteries. They're encased in a special case of epoxy. And we give you a guaranteed 20-year warranty on that. So both the meter and the endpoint have a 20-year warranty, as well as the network it's carried on. That's just more beacon information there. Some proactive systematic analytics. It's going to help you with running reports. So Crossroads is going to, they've already have, like I said, 11 or 12 utilities that are utilizing our technology so they can tell when there's a leak. So instead of you getting a high bill or say 30 days later not knowing there's a problem, you're instantly going to get that information from Crossroads. They're going to go check it. Most likely they're going to come to your door, knock on your door and say, hey, you may have a problem. You're running at a higher flow rate. And by the way, while I'm out here, sign up on your phone and you can see your water usage. So it's going to help in many different areas. Enhanced customer service, we just talked about that. Billing disputes, you know, Andrew can talk more about billing disputes with Crossroads, but you know, a lot of times when these ultrasonic meters, which capture a very low flow rate, which we'll get into, just from a meter maybe being 30, 40 years old, you're not sure the accuracy of that meter. So sometimes it could be 30% off. So a lot of times when customers get these meters, they're so very accurate, their bill automatically goes up. But also too, even if that's not the case, it automatically goes up too because you're capturing all the water and it's so precise. And also too, it gives you all the alerts that you're looking for, utilities. So you may have some disputes there. So it's a good software to have and put, because whether it's 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., you have that input per hour every 15 minutes to be able to pull that data, and talk to your customer about it. Does anyone have any questions on how the customer portal works? All right, everybody good? That's Ion Water is what Badger refers to the consumer portal, have an iPhone, an Android, iPad, from a desktop. Beacon's a managed solution. So the AMA is automatic metering analytics, or advanced metering analytics, complete managed solution. So there's no having to host a server, use the old floppy disk. There's no things that have to be sent to you to update your software and your solution. And key takeaways, we have more than 12 million of these cellular endpoints installed throughout the US now. And that's just US only. Less than a 1% return on all products sold. We're future-proof of the LTE-M, which means machine to machine. It communicates within that network. So we're 5G ready, 7G ready, 9G ready. Whatever the future holds, we have the capabilities to connect with that. And we are definitely the easiest to maintain and the easiest to get up started and going when you want a system installed.
Great. Thank you for that, Jeff. So is there, I think some of us have had some experience with wireless metering. To your point, I think the discussion around it came from potentially lack of accuracy, but this also, right, there's reporting both for the city, but also for the consumer, or for the community, certainly looking for ways to help track water usage. as we, the utility, are managing the cost of maintaining our utility, but also trying to emphasize conservation, which are oddly at odds with each other.
Oh, absolutely. And let me just take this time too to say Crossroads is a management service that we've entrusted in. We have exclusive contracts with them, but Andrew and his team, they do a phenomenal job. And every utility I've dealt with is much better because they're helping along the way. So I can't express enough how much we trust Crossroads, and whatever we can do for their customers, we're happy to do it.
Great, appreciate it. Amber, this was more of an informative, right, to help us as we decide, have discussions around full rollout of this, but just again, understanding capabilities. Again, some of us, not all of us, have had some experience with the trial that we're going through. And I think ultimately the goal was to figure out if it makes sense to roll it out. Certainly with our past billing provider, whatever AWR did, you know, that was a relationship that needed to change. My understanding is that we're very pleased with Crossroads, but that doesn't mean that we don't want to stop progressing forward, right, towards what makes most sense. And so this is helpful. So I appreciated the time. I appreciate the information. I don't know if there's any action that we're taking here other than thank you for it, as we continue to have discussions around next steps for you know, potentially.
And I'll be sending you guys pricing, cost sheets, all sorts of breakdowns and documents. So within the next day, you'll have a lot of information you can evaluate. And whenever you're ready, I'll be happy to come back in person or Zoom again. And we'll bring some of our technical guys in if they need to explain it better than I did. That's no problem at all.
I mean, certainly the capabilities of the digital meters make sense. I think the same thing that we just kind of talked about in the prior presentation is understanding, is there the cellular infrastructure here sufficient to handle everyone's needs, not, you know, and if not, what does that require us to do?
So we'll go ahead and get started on that. So I'll get with Andrew and get an address list. We'll go ahead and do that. There's no cost for that to do a propagation study. So we'll do a RF analysis and make sure we're all good to go. And, you know, we'll go from there.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
One of the things we need to make sure we get everybody is some information on the E-Series meter. It does have the option to have pressure on it. It does track temperature. It has a lot more information that it provides.
Well, also there's the automatic shut off, which I sent this, I think, to Ashley just like 30 minutes before the meeting. But our meters, we have an automatic shut off or partially shut off meters. You can do from literally your desktop or laptop. And like Kevin said, we're in the generation 2 meters for our E-Series. So you'll be seeing some of that as well, which should, you know, temperature rating settings, ambient temperature, pressure, automatic shut off. It's kind of the all-encompassing meter coming out here this year.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time and all the information. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks all.
All right, thank you. Great. Moving on to the consent agenda, which is discussion and possible action on the minutes from the June 1st, 2020 Utility Commission meeting. The minutes were included in the package that was sent out. So if anyone would like to motion to adopt those minutes, that would be a good place to start.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Minutes are adopted. Thank you. Moving on to the regular agenda, discussion and possible action on a recommendation to the City Council regarding a franchise agreement with the City of Austin. And looking back at those minutes from last month, you know, we ended up tabling this just to kind of understand and get some better information around we have any leverage points here. And so, Amber, I don't know if you have any update on our ability to do anything Or is this really just, are we just rubber stamping something? I mean, this is kind of just we have to do this semantics and get it over.
So yeah, so we reached out to Charlie, the city attorney, and asked if we had any leverage. And he said we have very little leverage, but it certainly can't hurt to ask. And then he just reminded us that if we asked for an increase in franchise fees, that it would be passed on to the end user.
Right.
So just to take that into consideration. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that what we've mostly expected that, thank you. I have another kind of move forward. So, does anyone have any other comments or questions around the franchise agreement with the city of Austin?
One of the questions was whether, this is Clark Wilson, one of the questions was whether we have any ability to request regular tree trimming as a preventive measure against both power outages and fire hazard. And I know they do some trimming, but it's not in the agreement as far as I could tell. And there may be restrictions in the city of Austin, but certainly I believe Rollingwood could have its own control or recommendations or to allow that or encourage it. I don't know if it should go in the agreement, but it certainly seems like a natural thing, because I know in California, the PG&E had the unfortunate situation of going bankrupt because they didn't trim their trees, and they got sued. I know our agreement doesn't have any provisions for doing that, but maybe it should. I don't know. That's the question I have in mind.
Clark, I've read like a million contracts in my legal career, and that was the shortest contract I've ever read. And it had things like, reasonable, and it had like reasonable maintenance of the facilities. And I mean, we can ask for it, but they're going to tell us to,
Okay. Well, anyway, that
that
was my concern.
I agree 1,000%. And I also would like to hear what they have to say about the 2 weeks that I spent huddled in front of my fireplace. But
well, that's another matter.
I don't think we
but
have enough leverage to get anything out of them.
I think it would be worth asking the question anyway.
I'm with you 100%.
So I know we were having a conversation coincidentally with City of Austin prior to the storm that knocked the power out for several days about tree trimming. It was one of the things that was on that they were going to begin the tree trimming for Rollingwood. I don't know if they have done any additional tree trimming to what was necessary in order to get power restored following that storm. But it certainly seemed like a reasonable, of course they like that as well, but a reasonable request. Is that something that we asked them about to clarify what tree trimming is prior to signing this agreement?
I think that's the right thing to do. Just ask the question, can we put something in there about some sort of maintenance schedule for tree trimming? Just ask.
We could approve it, go from there. A lot of the residents will be very hesitant to accept it because they don't want their trees cut. But then when they lose their power, they get mad.
It could be worse. We could have a urban fire if things get, if we're in a dry situation.
I don't have a car because of the last ice storm.
Yeah. Well, anyways, we have a lot of trees, and we have those, I think, 450 volt insulated lines at the top. It's a chance to start a fire.
Well, some trees have been trimmed recently post the last event, and I know that they were going back doing some more because our next door neighbor, they blew a capacitor which took out the power for a few of us a week or two afterwards, and that was another 8 hours.
So Amber, what is the timing of this? in the sense of it's effective March 1st, we haven't signed it yet. Obviously, I don't expect interruption, but well, normal interruption. Do we need to have the sign soon? What's the, can we go back and just say, hey, the city's just concerned about the maintenance of trees around the lines, and the agreement's pretty light on that? What's your answer? Is that a reasonable next step, or should we really need to be signing in the next couple of weeks?
I would like to confirm that with the city attorney. I think we're okay going back to them. I think it's just we continue under the existing agreement unless they decided not to provide us power. I don't know how that works.
What are we gonna do?
I know, exactly. They probably have to have an issue with the PUC at that point if they went that route. So I think we're okay, but let me confirm that with Charlie. And if he's okay with that, I will ask the question about tree maintenance.
Can we make a motion here to say that we approve this with some conditions, either that if there's going to be changes to this with regard to trees, that we would bring it back and understand that, and if they say they can't, then you're approved, something we can do anyway? Would that be helpful?
Yes, that would be very helpful.
So moved.
I think that was a motion that. So just to repeat, making a motion that the commission will approve the franchise agreement with the city of Austin under the condition that will attempt to get more information regarding the maintenance of trees around the lines. To the extent that they're willing to do so, we'll review their language and vote on this. If they say they can't do it, then we're just approved.
So
okay. Well, so a second, I guess, is needed.
Great. All in favor? Aye. Perfect. There we go. Great. I know this was a long meeting.
No, I have another motion.
I'm listening.
Amber, Ashley, thank you for the 4th. It was fabulous. And Clark, your car is over the top. Thank you for doing the parade.
Thanks.
The 4th was really, I was very concerned about this. And, my kids have had 19 years of this, so this one was really good considering everything. So thank you.
It was really special, wasn't it?
Great. Thank you for that. That is in the public record now. So again, before we adjourn and schedule for next time, any other open items or comments anyone would like to make?
I do have a question, a serious question. Amy, do you have really serious cell, you can't get reception?
We have a few corners of our house where we can get one bar for texting. So one of the issues that I had during the ice storm when I was trying to make phone calls to the city of Austin to work on collaborating with other elected officials to try to get our critical infrastructure back on is that I could only text. And
you gotta fix
I couldn't check email and I couldn't make a phone call that would hold. So I will say that it cycles. So sometimes it's actually worse at night and sometimes it's worse during the day. It's not consistent.
Okay, then thank you, John, for bringing this up, and let's work on this. And because literally my wife goes either up into the balcony or out in the front yard to text and call people, and I'm worried about 911 with my little one, and that's why we still have a landline.
Yeah, I mean, not to get too off topic, but I think there's a lot of examples too with our for our police department. If they're trying to talk to someone and there's different streets where the calls get dropped, to me that's really important as well.
And John's question to the cell people was provocative in terms of when you come into the city, then you have to drop off and come back on. I don't think that's the right move for us.
I don't know if there's I don't know what the options are. I just, you know, this is a private network, which means you have to switch to the network. And once you're on it, that's great. But as you're coming in, you'll still be subject to the existing cellular infrastructure until you make that switch. And it's not as if it can switch and keep the call alive. But that is a current limitation. But if this is you know, this seems like a step in the right direction.
Better than nothing.
Well, you know, the other option was the small cell network, which was basically putting a bunch of small cell towers in the community and then having AWS Motive go to the carriers and then get them onto those networks, that cell network. You still pay for that and they manage that. This was theoretically more cost effective, but we haven't seen the cost of anything. So, you know, this could be $50 million for all I know, or it could be $2 million. I haven't the slightest idea. We're not quite there yet, but I think if what was heard today is compelling, then, you know, the next step would be having conversations around, okay, let's learn what are the next steps. They're going to have to do an assessment and understand where the places in town that aren't that don't have signal or where signal's stronger than others, and then they're going to have to put together a present, you know, like an RFP. But I don't, you know, and then tell us what this is all going to cost, right? And that's really the next step.
I just wish we could get our minds around like a big cell tower in the park and call it a day.
That might be possible.
Well, AT&T already told us they really don't have any interest in doing that. That was the way. That was how I took their tone on the call. They're like, you guys couldn't get this done the last time. There was my community. It takes us 2 years to do it. And it's kind of a lot of time and effort. And if it's not going to happen, we don't really want to do it. And that was just a single carrier. And then you have to get all the other carriers. Otherwise, you're only servicing AT&T customers. But again, I don't know how it all works. It just seemed like that was one of the challenges, even with that tower. And at the time, that was a 100-foot tower, but we only had a 6-foot limit. Wasn't that some of the discussion around it? And then when they went in to get the exemption to go to 100, that's when everyone lost their mind.
Yeah, people lose their minds.
So this will certainly be less obtrusive around town. You won't see it so much.
Probably gives us the ability to collect some tax revenue as well if we can be in charge of the billing.
Well, that was something that I was trying to understand is, so you provide this network and then I decide I'm just going to use it as my private video streaming network. Is it, well, I'm using tons of data. Does that impact the cost of the system to the city?
Well, that's where it was on about. You limit the bandwidth, and if you need more bandwidth, you'd have to stick more costs down.
So I think
I wasn't happy with that either, you know, that you throttle people, because I'm stuck on Zoom most of the time. And, you know, how do I tell my employer, oh, you know, I've been throttled on bandwidth?
Well, this wasn't really designed to replace your in-home Wi-Fi, although maybe it can. And I know there was some discussion around whether it should or not. It was really, how do we deliver cellular service to the community? And of course it expands, because they're like, once we put in this machine or this unit, we can put other things on it. We can give you this, that, we can have Wi-Fi in the park. I get it. There's a lot of things you can do. But the focus should be, how do we get our cell phones to work in the city, you know, consistently across the footprint, and then kind of go from there. But if it becomes the city is subsidizing everyone's cell phone bills because or Wi-Fi networks, you know, I just don't know how that all works. So I'm certainly looking forward to learning more about it.
I thank you for bringing it up. We haven't talked about it before. You did it, so I appreciate it.
Good. All right. Well, with that, I think I'll call to adjourn the meeting if anyone doesn't have anything else to add.
Motion.
Second.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening.